As a fifth grade teacher, whenever I'm learning anything, I'm always thinking about how I would use this in my classroom. So over the last number of weeks, when we've been learning the different multimedia principles, I've been thinking, how would I use these and what do I do in my classroom that are working with these multimedia principles? So we have Multimedia Principles in the Classroom by Nicole Sardi. The first one is words and graphics. You can see this is an example of a Veterans Day art project that we do, and the directions are right along with the pictures. So students can certainly follow these directions, but it's also for the teachers too, because when you're first learning how to do this folding and what you do with it, it is kind of confusing. So having the directions right along with the graphics is very helpful when understanding this project. On the contiguity principle, we have an illustration of a volcano with the definitions of each of the pieces and parts of a volcano directly connected to the picture. And then there's also lines that flow from the definition to the picture, and that just helps students with their eye tracking and what it is that they're supposed to be looking at. The modality principle is our Tinkercad. So this is a video that I made that shares how to find different pieces and parts to Tinkercad. So Tinkercad is a web-based program that is for 3D designing, for 3D software, or for 3D printing. And we're not going to watch the whole thing, but
welcome to Basic Tinkercad.
And if we just scooch up a little bit,
have text with new line support. There's a script. Okay, there's actually Braille right there, but I want to look at this text ring because this is some things that some people like to do. If I have a circle, and let's say we're doing our vases, when we make our vases, let's get rid of this here, and I'm going to go back to my shape generator for my basic shape and give myself a circle. Okay. Make it a little bit larger so that it's just easier to work with. Okay. And
so that is an example of how I use the modality principle to give my students audio when they're trying to figure out how to use a program. This is something then that they have available to them whenever they need it. And of course, there's more to the Tinkercad web program than what I'm sharing with them here, but this at least gives them the first little basic parts so that they can check it out. Okay, next one, our redundancy principle. We want to be redundant when we're giving kids information so that they just have more opportunities to learn it. So I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to my students. They all have a book in front of them that they can read along with me while I'm reading it out loud. There are written responses that they do throughout the book to just kind of respond to the story and think about what it means and how they're connecting to the story. You can see on the left-hand side are I've taken videos then of myself reading the story, and then I put them into our team site, and that's on the right-hand side. Now the pictures aren't connected to that because this is an archived team since we're not in school anymore, and my students from last year won't need it anymore. So, but what I have is I've given them another opportunity, whether they missed it or if they need to reread the chapter, they can listen to the story while they're reading the chapter, and then that gives them the opportunity to do that on their own. They have the book in front of them. Okay. The coherence principle. We want our information that we're sharing with our students to be straight and simple and to the point. So here we have learning targets for each of the standards that we have, whether it's math or ELA. And this learning target is what the kids need to know. So they're performing multiplication operations with decimals to thousands. Their success criteria lets them know in their friendly language, it's very coherent, what they need to know. And then there's the learning progression. This is what I can do, I can do, I can do, I can do, the vocabulary that they need to be able to define or have an understanding of. And then why that's important. So this is very coherent. They have it in front of them. They can access it. Parents can access it. Teachers can access it. Our personalization principle is how I personalize my classroom for when I have a substitute or when students might not be there or just some extra information. So I use Wakelet, which is a collaboration spot and I can collect different things to share. But when I have a substitute, I have a Wakelet for my sub that sub can use when I'm gone. So here's a video that I took. I needed my students to be able to fold this piece of paper into a certain way. So I took a short, I used Flipgrid, I took a short of it, and then I shared it in the substitute. So I was personalizing for my sub so that they had access to things that we use in class, and then it was also for my students so that I was still there even though I wasn't there.
Hi there, fifth graders. We are going to fold this long sheet of paper into 12 different sections. So the first thing you're going to do is fold it.
And we don't need to continue watching that, but that just gives my substitutes a way that it's personalized. I'm still there in my classroom even though I'm not physically there, which is nice. Now here is Wakelet, and this is segmenting. So it's much smaller than what it normally is. It doesn't fit, but I wanted to get this all on this page. And this is a Wakelet that I have collected that was on American protests. And you can see that I have segmented the different pieces. So they've got an introduction, point 1, point 2, point 3, and then the conclusion. And it goes into a 5-paragraph essay. And then here, if they click on each of these, this is going to take them to a specific resource that's a court case. These that have this Wakelet sign, these are other collections. So this one is going to be all resources that are with women's suffrage, wolf conservation, and these are topics that we were talking about with this protesting unit. And then these are all just different resources that students can have. So I've segmented them out. I've put them in a nice place for them to use. And then I've given them their directions of what they're going to be writing. So this is Wakelet. These multimedia principles work together so that our classrooms are effective, and I definitely am using and being very aware of how I am using my multimedia principles in my classroom.